Oi boys, welcome to another video on the channel. With another round in the bag, the ladder is as stands. The Panthers and the Broncos, 1 and 2 on 20 points. And on 18 points you have the Bunnies, the Sharks, the Storm and the Canberra Raiders. That goes all the way down to 6th. To round off the 8 on 16 points we have the Warriors and the Dolphins. The Roosters are also on 16 points at 9th. But yeah, before we jump into this week's matches, let's go ahead and take a look at how we did in round 14. So our picks were much better than the last few weeks. The Broncos upsetting the Sharks on the road, and the bloody Cowboys, man, the Cowboys. They grind my gears. I'm not sure how many people actually picked the Cows, but they got the win, a big win. It's like a 25-point win over the Storm. As for the bakery, 3 players bagged the meat pies. Jermaine Saako, Alofiana Kampahera, and Nick Meaney. Alright, let's dive into this week's matches. Okay, so off rip to kick off round 15, we have a game between the Gold Coast Titans and the West's Tigers, this being played at Cbus Super Stadium. Ins and outs, massive outs for the Titans, Chris Randall, David Fifita, and the Tigers looks pretty much unchanged. So filling in for Dave Fifita on the left edge will be Cleese Haas, and coming onto the bench is Cruz Lee Ming. They also welcome back Jamin Jolliffe to the bench. Their biggest in, if you will, they're welcoming back AJ Brimson to that fullback position. Jaden Campbell still in the 6. Interesting. I wonder where Toby Sexton is, but yeah, anyway. That's my pick for this game. It's another bloody fence setter, and we'll be hopping off on the side of the Tigers. We already know how good the Titans are in attack, and with AJ Brimson being back, you can expect them to be even more of a threat, but I'm just not confident given that their second halves are just non-existent. Their defense in general has been hot garbage. Tigers on the other hand have somewhat turned the corner. They haven't quite kicked on, but they've improved immensely, and I do think they can squeak out a win here against the Titans on the road. I'm absolutely loving their forward pack. I've always said it, and I want to back their big boys to carry their Tigers home. I'm particularly interested in seeing how Utuika Manu does, as he is knocking on their State of Origin door. This will be a great test for him against Mofotua Ika and Tino Fa'aso Maleawi. I'm expecting the left edge of Campbell and Haas to be under pressure, so we might fish around there for the bakery. But yeah, I'm on the Tigers, and we're going to go 1 to 12. In game number 2, for Friday nights, we have another tough one. Played at GIO Stadium, the Canberra Raiders host the New Zealand Warriors. Ins and outs, starting with the Raiders. Their skipper makes his return for his 300th game, Jared Croker. They've also got Seb Chris at fullback and Elliot Whitehead on the edge. This is pretty much their full strength side for the Warriors. They will be without Rocco Berry. Making his debut in the centers is Ali Leatawa. And as for my pick, gee man, this is such a toughie. I do believe in this new Warriors system so much, but on the road, heading up to Canberra, a club legends milestone match, you'd expect the Raiders pack to play like it's their last match. I'm looking at Papali'i, Tapine, and Corey Horsburgh, who is back in the middle. Stylistically, it's a really good matchup as well, as both of these sides have showed plenty of resilience this season. I want to slightly lean towards the side of the Canberra Raiders in this one, backing Sticky to fire up his troops, but it'll be no easy feat as the Warriors have a solid forward pack of their own, and a more diverse forward pack, I'll say that. So yeah, we're going to take the Raiders without confidence. I do think the Warriors will keep it tight, so give me the Raiders 1 to 12. And to headline your Friday night, we have the Manly Warringah Sea Eagles playing host to the Redcliffe Dolphins, this obviously being played at 4 Pines Park. As for the ins and outs, starting with the home side, the outs. Brad Parker, Cooper Johns and Morgan Boyle coming in for Parker and Cooper Johns. Obviously DCE goes into that 7 position, Ruben Garrick shifts into the centres, they've got Tommy at fullback, Christian Duipolotu on the wing, and they're also welcoming back Josh Aloiai to the bench. But yeah, moving on to the Dolphins, they're out Anthony Milford, Jared Wallace and Mason Teague, but they welcome back some absolute weapons, Hamiso Tabuai-Fado at fullback, Jeremy Marshall King at hooker, Cody shifts back to the 6, having an outstanding season for the Finns, might I add. And I believe that's all the changes as we sift through the lineup here. They still got Valence Tefare on the bench. You never know with Manly, they've got the talent for sure. I mean, a couple of weeks ago they were on the road and they did a number on the bloody the Raiders, who had their full strength side. In saying that, they did have Jake Trbojevic back then. Without him, they've looked like Itche. I mean, let's keep it a bean. So I do like their record at home. They're currently like 3 from 5. With Origin 2 looming, you're looking at players like Tommy Turbo, DCE, Ha'omole Olakawatu, who is another player knocking at the door. I don't know, I just like them at home, to be honest. I don't have too much confidence in their forward pack against the Finns, especially without Jerbo, but Tommy Turbo, DCE, that's enough for me to take Manly at home. And we'll go 1 to 12. To kick off Super Saturday, we have St George taking on South Sydney. Ins and outs, starting with the home side, they'll be without Jack de Bellin. they do welcome back Blake Laurie, Jack Bird. They got Talatawa Mone. Is he returning to the 6? No, he is not. All 3 players could easily make their way back into the 17. They're actually all in reserves. For the Bunnies, plenty of ins, but we're looking for players that'll actually make it to the 17. Liam Knight here, Siliva Havili. Man, it's been a minute since we've seen Siliva. He makes his way to the bench. They got Shaquai Mitchell playing 13. Taine Milne in reserves could potentially push for that wing spot off Richie Kenner. And yeah, that's that for the team lists. As for my pick, you'd think off rip it'll be cut and dry for the Bunnies, but they're without Latrell Mitchell obviously and Cameron Murray. The inclusion of Siliva Havili is massive. Both him and Sele kind of flew under the radar for how influential they were for the Bunnies last season. But yeah, not too much on this game. With Latrell and Murray, they do a number on the Dragons, but without him, I will keep it safe and go 1-12. The second game for Super Saturday, Brisbane Broncos hosting the Newcastle Knights. In terms of ins and outs, Corey Jensen is on the ins list for the Broncos, but he's in reserves. If he's fit and ready, we'll most likely see him back in the 17. For the Knights, they do welcome back Tyson Frizzell to that right edge. And other than that, I don't really have much on this game. I do think the Broncos get by quite comfortably, but I will say I'm really looking forward to the clash between the fullbacks. Reece Walsh versus KP at Suncorp Stadium. That is hectic. But yeah, other than that, the Broncos should be too much for the Knights to handle, so we're going to take them 13+. And for the final game, Super Saturday, we have the Sydney Roosters playing against the Penrith Panthers, this being played at Allianz Stadium. In terms of ins and outs, oh wow, Zach Docker-Clay's at the Roosters. On the ins lists in the reserves, Fletcher Baker, Broncos bound, all these players pretty much in reserves except for Daniel Dubois, who will be making his way back onto the wing. You love to see that. He's been sorely missed when it comes to sparking up sets. They've also still got Joey Manu in the 6, with Corey Allen keeping his spot in the centres. Interesting. Not sure how I feel about that. Manu in the 6 in particular. You know what, we'll hold off. We'll hold off until we talk about the Penrith Panthers. Their ins and outs, obviously the biggest one. No Nathan Cleary. Jack Cogger slides right in. He was pretty decent for them last week. They've also got Salmon, Garner, Eisenhuth and Luke, with only Jermaine Salmon in the 17. Liam Martin still coming off the bench. As for my pick, it should be a slugfest, and when it comes down to like a slugfest, I'm always going to take the Panthers. We're halfway through the season now and the Roosters still haven't, I guess, found their style of play, which is pretty disappointing. They used to be one of the gritty teams like the Panthers, but they're far from the old guard. I will be backing the Panthers in this on the road, although I do think the Roosters will put up a fight, we'll say that. You know, the Panthers without Nathan Cleary, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Being a systematic team, we've seen other players just slide in and be like a, you know, another cog in the machine, if you will. Obviously not as smooth. So again, we'll take the Panthers and we'll go with 1-12. First game of the Sunday sesh, we have the Cronulla Sharks taking on the Melbourne Storm. This being played at Amy Park. In terms of ins and outs, starting with the away side, there's no changes. Actually got Cam McInnes. He's back in the 17, on the bench to be specific. And for Melbourne, Tarek Sims makes his way back to the bench as well. He'll be in the 17. They will be without Justin Olam. And going into the centres for Olam will be Grant Anderson. That's an interesting selection with Marion Sever in the reserves. As for my pick, both teams looking for a bounce back. The Storm got destroyed in North Queensland. Like I said earlier, they got 45 points dropped on them. As for the Sharks, they lost at home to the Broncos in a close one. Man, there's been plenty of hard games to pick this week. This one's no different. In their previous meetings, both teams won 13+. So they're 1-1 heading into this, both 3 from their last 5. I think I want to lean towards the Sharkies in this. You know, the Melbourne Storm defense, it's nothing like they used to be. Yes, they're coming off a humiliating loss and it's at Amy Park, but I don't know. I like the Sharks in this. They have a far better back 5 in my opinion. And just their attack in general, I believe, is better of the two. The Sharks low-key need a win against a quote-unquote big team to get this flat track bully stench off them. This could be the week. I'm also really looking forward to the potential Origin 2 preview between Cam Munster and Nico Hines. But yeah, give me the Sharks in a close one on the road, 1-12. And the final match of the week, we have Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs taking on the Parramatta Eels at Accor Stadium. In terms of ins and outs, Jacob Carraz makes his way back onto the wing for the Bulldogs. They've also got Frankie Bele in reserves, as well as Braden Burns and Kyle Flanagan. So we could potentially see some of those boys crack the 17 for the Eels. Joe Ofahengawe and Woodamu Greg, they're on the outs, and Andrew Davey makes his way back onto the edge. Not to mention their biggest ends, Junior Paulo and Regan Campbell-Gillard. It's actually looking like a pretty, I think, full-strength side for the Eels. As for my pick, as much as I love the Bulldogs and the way they've been playing this season, I think the Parramatta Eels will be a little too strong for them. The return of Campbell Gillard and Junior Paulo through the middle was massive, not to mention their spine, their halves in particular. Sticking with the origin theme, we're looking for Mitchell Moses to have a standout performance. There's plenty of players and storylines to look out for in this game. I thought Reid Marnie would be missing this week. That knee that he took from Suali'i looked pretty nasty, but they do have him named. For mine, like I said, I'm going to take Para 1 to 12. So to recap, there's plenty of 1 to 12s. We got the Tigers 1 to 12, the Raiders 1 to 12, Manly 1 to 12, the Bunnies 1 to 12, the Broncos 13 plus, the Panthers 1 to 12, the Sharks 1 to 12, and the Parramatta Eels 1 to 12. As per, there'll be a list of Oddskis Bakery, aka our try scorers, one from each game, and of course, if you have any thoughts and opinions or picks for this week, go ahead and drop them in the comment section down below. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you later.